All right, my people, it is time. Episode 8, Unnecessary Rambling. It is here, ready to go. Big show, 3 games to dive into, so some topics to discuss. We got a big show planned for you today, so I am pumped. Thank you all so much for stopping by and taking the time out of your day to listen to my ramblings. We have a weird situation on the show today, where I put up the community poll for allowing you to vote for the final topic of the show, and we have a tie currently. It is currently tied between the top 10 PS4 games, my top 10 favorite PS4 games, and the 10 remakes that I want to see, delivered to us soon. So I was thinking, like, what the hell, in a situation of a tie, what's the move there? So my first thought was, okay, cover one topic this week and one topic next week. But then I was like, well, that's kind of a bummer, because that wouldn't allow you guys to have a vote for next week. You wouldn't be able to vote on the final topic next week. I was like, well, that kind of, that kind of sucks. I don't want to do that. I want to each week give you guys something to vote on. So I figured we'll dive into both of them. Those will be the 2 final topics of the show. Dive into my top 10 PS4 games, top 10 remakes that I want to see, and we'll close off the show with both of them. So in the case of a tie, that's going to be the move going forward. We'll just cover both the damn topics, and you guys will have a fresh poll of 4 brand new topics next week, because the idea has been, anytime I'll run a poll, and then whatever comes in second place, I move that on to the next week's poll, and you can vote. And if it's a close race like this one would have been, you can vote on, like, let's say top 10 PS4 games won. You could then vote again on top 10 remakes if that's something you really wanted to see covered on the show. So that was kind of the idea, to give the second place finisher a chance to redeem itself, a chance to win the next vote if it's something you guys really wanted to see. So yeah, in a situation of a tie, we'll run through both the topics, and then the next poll will be 4 brand new topics, because there's no second place finisher. But that is the idea there. So a real big show, a real big show to get into. So I'm not going to waste any more of your time. I do want to say, the live stream. I tried doing a live stream, ran into a bunch of technical issues, and my internet's just not. It's not live stream capable. A lot of audio issues, a lot of echoey, choppy audio, and it was fine. It wasn't horrible. Like, it was serviceable. So what I did do was I took the Microsoft Activision acquisition clip. It's like a 18-minute segment. I clipped that out, and I'm going to use that in this video. So if you hear a little bit of an audio dip from this recording here to when we start discussing that, it's because I clipped it out from that live stream, and the audio is not going to be quite as good as it is right now. But it's not horrible. I listened back to a good bit of it just to make sure it was serviceable, and it's decent. It's passable, I would say, but I want it to be better than passable. So going forward, I'm not 100% sure with Unnecessary News, because I really wanted to do a live stream segment for it, or a live stream format for it, because it's a time thing. You know what I mean? Live streaming is the quickest way to get out content. Less, you kind of know going into a live stream that it's not going to be highly produced, highly edited, all that shit. And I like that, I like having people's expectations set at that bar of, like, okay, it's going to be just kind of shooting the shit, going through the topics. Whereas if I do it remotely, I know that immediately in my head it's going to be like, fuck, I got to do some sort of editing, spice this up a little bit, throw some gameplay in here, throw some trailers in here, and it's a time issue there. But I do want to figure out a way to do that, because it just, in the case of a big news week, it just makes these the weekly shows of Unnecessary Rambling 2+ hours, and I don't want to have 2-hour plus shows of just me solo fucking rambling about shit. So I want to figure out a good format for unnecessary news, and I'll be working on that, tinkering with that a little bit to see if I can figure something out that's up to the level of quality that I have, in mind for these shows, without the technical issues and the audio issues and all that shit. So stay posted on that. That is not out of the picture entirely yet. That will come to fruition at some point. But for the time being, want to keep the quality solid with these shows, keep diving into the games, talking the topics and all that good shit with you. And yeah, so just a warning, whenever it gets to the news section talking about the Microsoft Activision acquisition, the audio will take a pretty noticeable dip in quality. So just want to prepare you for that. All right, so now it is time to talk about what I have been playing, and I feel like we got to kick it off with the big dog, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. And before we get going on this, because this has become a very controversial, very contentious sort of supposedly the performance, and I'm not saying supposedly dismissively, or I have seen clips of this game running on PC, and it looks atrocious. It looks god awful. And you're EA. You're $1 billion publisher. You got to do better. That's crazy. It's crazy. Nobody, and I've seen people saying, they're running it at fucking they got like the best damn PC specs on the market, and this thing is still struggling. Just like Dead Space was awful on PC. Another EA published title. I don't know what's going on in the water over there, but some serious issues with EA. There's been serious issues in general with PC games this year. I obviously it's going to be easier to develop for one specific console, or even, for the case of PS5, Xbox Series X and S, like you only have 3 SKUs to develop for, opposed to fucking 5,000 for the different PC SKUs that you're, this game has to be functional for all these different variables. I understand that there's a level of challenge and difficulty there, getting all of that up to speed and running properly. But you're EA. Come on, man. It shouldn't have released in that state on PCs and powerful PCs struggling to just get this game looking and running functionally. That's awful. I've seen some people even say that their console versions are a little bit busted. I've seen the term thrown out of game-breaking bugs a time or two. And I just got to say, in my experience, 0 of that. I've had technical issues for sure, like very minor, to me, like non-issue technical issues, not things that will lessen my experience or deter me from playing the game at all. I will say inexcusable for you to release a disc that has 60 gigabytes on the disc to begin playing it, and then an extra 100 that's like a mandatory online download. You have your 60 gigabytes that you can download offline, and then you have to have internet access to download the extra 100 gigabytes to play the game. Just fucking make 2 discs like Red Dead and Cyberpunk, and bringing up Cyberpunk. That is one thing I want to be very clear about. But all of my complaints, and everybody's complaints about this game, I feel are very justified. It's not a Cyberpunk situation, not on console. PC seems to be awful, but a lot of PC games seem to be having serious problems this year. Dead Space, another EA title, struggled its ass off to run on PC. There's been a lot. The Last of Us. PC is really, really struggling in 2023. I don't know what the fuck's going on there. I don't know if publishers have just like given up on, which I know that's not the case, but something is amiss in the world of PC game development. I don't know if it's like a way lesser priority than the console SKUs, but yeah. Bringing up Cyberpunk just a second ago, I want to be very clear. My experience, even when I was playing the base game, because you have like the 60 gigabytes where it's like, okay, ready to go at 60, and then you have to download the extra 100 for the fucking day one patch and the rest of the content, yada yada yada. The 60 gigabytes was like the regular base game that you can download offline. Nothing close to a Cyberpunk situation. The game ran okay. I could have played through, if the game ran at that if the game functioned at that level for the rest of the experience, I wouldn't have been too bummed out. Yeah, there was definitely some major frame rate droppings. There were some major pop-in issues that were occurring, but nothing like, I experienced nothing game breaking. But to be clear, I played the base version of the game Friday night. I didn't have a ton of time to play Friday. I ended up having to work really late, so I only played a little bit of it, went to sleep, downloaded the patch overnight, and then the next day the game was running much, much better. Much better. I ended up switching it from performance mode to quality mode, and it made a humongous difference. And obviously you guys will see the gameplay that I record. Anytime we do these, what I'm playing, so I have the gameplay capture running, and so you'll see it running on the quality mode opposed to performance mode, and it is just a very, very smooth, stable 30 frames per second. I'm not a big frame rate snob. I don't really care a ton about that shit, especially for a very cinematic, narrative heavy third person action adventure game. I'm not a big frame rate snob on that at all. Would I prefer to be playing at 60? Of course. I think every game, or 90% of games, run much better at 60 than 30. But you'll see the gameplay running. I think it looks damn good. It's running damn smooth. Sure, I'm still seeing some minor pop-in issues at times, but the frame rate inconsistency has totally leveled out, and it is running very, very smooth on the quality mode. So for those of you who are not frame rate aficionados, for those of you who don't really care about that stuff too much, I would probably say going with the quality mode might be a better option. Okay, all of that out of the way. Shame on EA. I grant you that for sure. This is unacceptable across the board for not having the full game on the disc, for not, having a damn good version of the game running on PC. I give you that. But I gotta say, I am about 8-ish hours in. This is all I want to play. This is all I want to play. Every moment of the day that I'm not playing this game, I want to be playing this game. It is fucking amazing. It is this epic Star Wars adventure. The cinematics are so good. It really feels like you're in a Star Wars movie. The production value has increased drastically from Jedi Fallen Order. Like, you can tell Respawn is really working with a budget for Jedi Survivor. And you are feeling like you are in this epic Star Wars adventure and getting full control over the adventure that you're embarking on. It is a magical game. I adore it, from the puzzle solving and the intricate puzzle solving, the detail that is there, and how big these expansive areas are that you're going off, and you have like a little rumor quest that you meet someone in the town, and they go off and they tell you, hey, there's this mining area with a bunch of troops who seem to be guarding valuable assets over there. So you go off and you find the area that they're talking about. You explore it. You take out the different troops. You take out the different guards. And then there's this intricate layered puzzle that spans like a huge section of the map that you're traversing between. You're doing you're running up the sides of the walls, you're pulling the rope to you to get to the next level, and you have like a new grapple gun that'll allow you to reach further away destinations that you couldn't reach before. So that becomes a new added layer into the maneuverability of Cal Kestis. And see, you have you can customize Cal in Jedi Survivor. So you as you're going throughout the game and exploring these different locations, and finding the different chests, and you're gathering shit out of the chest. You get a bun that you can put Cal Kestis hair in a damn bun. You can get a big old scraggly beard or a mullet, and you have different parts that you can get for what is it? BB-8, I believe, is the name. The little droid character that comes with you, so cute. You get to customize him, pick out the different colors that you want. You want to paint him a different color. You got all the different SKUs there. There's more, like, it's not just all ponchos for Cal's appearance. Now you got shirts and you got pants, and it's just so much more your version of Cal Kestis. And I really like that. I like being able to kind of customize the version of Cal that I want. You also have different stances in Jedi Survivor. So I've been just dual wielding. I got my two blades. You get that from the first boss of the game, which the first boss, excellent. The way that it sets up narratively for those of you who played the first game, it's a great continuation there. Some good closure, a good I don't want to get too much into it. It's crazy that the beginning of the game, there's like humongous spoilers, because I captured some footage of the beginning of the game, because I was like, usually that's a good go-to to avoid major spoilers, to throw the beginning of the game on there. You're seeing kind of the introductory moments and the tutorial process, the layout of the control schematics and all that shit. At the beginning of Jedi Survivor, you're thrown in, man. You seriously have like big character arcs that are continuing over from the first game, and new characters who like big moments popping up there. So I ended up just going with I actually the gameplay that I recorded is from this morning. So wherever the hell, I think I'm like 7 hours into the game. I tried to just record something that wasn't too spoiler heavy. It's just kind of some battles. It's really not even the best area for the gameplay to be recorded from, because it's not as flashy looking. There's some very flashy, just awesome ass settings in Jedi Survivor that I've already experienced. And then next week I'll make sure that the gameplay I record is really like one of the better locations, like the most fucking futuristic sci-fi locations in the game. But yeah, it's just been an absolute blast. I love the combat. Like I said, I got the dual wielding from the first boss encounter. You get the dual wielding lightsabers, and I've just been upgrading that, going in and upgrading my survivor capabilities, my survivor abilities, trying to max out Cal Kestis's fucking health meter, going around to the little health I don't even know what they call it, but they got these little your stim packages that BB-8 gives you, and you can like inject the stim to boost your health. They had these little chests that allow you access to more stims to where you can like hold, BB-8 can hold more stims for you throughout the game. And each time you access it, like you go from, okay, you have 2 stims on hand at any time, to 3 to 4 to 5. I've been going around trying to find as many of those as possible, just so I can go into battle ready to go, prepared, because it is it's the like I said, that first boss fight, it's like, oh shit, yeah, this is legit. It's not punishing on the level of a Souls game or anything like that, but it takes inspiration from those Souls mechanics and some inspiration from like a light degree of the difficulty if you're just playing on like the medium normal setting. Like it's not punishing on that level, but there are like, there's a I forget the Raycon something. You find him down in a you find him down in this location where you're going off and doing a side quest, and it's punishingly difficult, super difficult, that boss encounter. So there are those moments of like real deal difficulty, but the main story, the base story that I've played so far, you can get through it fairly easily. You have new allies assisting you in battle, so it's cool to see another person fighting alongside Cal in these big battles, and just the simple satisfaction of pulling out your saber, parrying at the right time as a droid shooting at you. You parry just at the right time. The lightsaber, you know, deflects the bullet or deflects the blast, shoots it right back at the droid, takes him out, one hit. Going in and parrying at the right time whenever you have like a more powerful enemy coming at you and it stuns them. And you do like I unlocked this ability to where you press square once and he does his like normal blast, and then you hold square and he does like this supercharged hyper fast fucking movement with his lightsaber, just slashing through the enemy, and then he does a very powerful like slam to finish him off. And do like getting that parry at the right time and kind of being on the lower end of your health. You're out of stim packs, but you parried right at the right time, stunned the enemy a little bit, and then you just do that super fast fucking attack that you unlocked from the skill tree. It's just so damn satisfying. I love the adventuring. I love the platforming. I love the story so far. There was a moment in this story, I'm telling you, man, and I should have prefaced all this. I'm not a Star Wars aficionado. I've watched all the movies, but I don't watch the TV shows. I don't watch I don't read the books or the comics or what. Like, I'm a very base level, like basic bitch Star Wars fan. I don't have all the knowledge in the world about this franchise. But I will say there's a moment in this game that rivals anything I've seen in the movies. Anything. The way it's set up, the production value for this one specific moment, the animation, the way that the characters are presented, it's so fucking visceral, and when the moment happens, it's just sold and told to you so well that you're like, it's one of those goosebump fucking on the edge of your seat moments that are so rare in any, you know, any form of storytelling. And for it to be done in this game and to have like what I really do consider an all-time great Star Wars moment, it's awesome. And just in terms of the cinematics, the storytelling within the cinematics, they're so good. They're so good. It's top notch, man. It sucks to have to compare things, because like, for sure, no, the production value, it's not The Last of Us, it's not God of War, it's not going to be polished to that state, but it's like the one tier right below it in terms of the production value, in terms of the cinematics and the character, the facial models and animations. And yeah, it's you're not going to jump into this game and have a totally unscathed, totally clean, polished run through it. Like, it's just very unlikely to happen anytime soon. But the console version, the PlayStation 5 version that I have been playing for the last 8 hours or so, especially after the day one patch, has been very, very great. Like, very, very great. I can say definitively, without a doubt, at this moment right now, this is far and away better than Jedi Fallen Order. And I'll also say this, for those of you who don't remember, Jedi Fallen Order was really, really rough performance-wise as well when it first released. A lot of bugs with Jedi Fallen Order. I have not run into nearly the amount of bugs that I ran into with Jedi Fallen Order I have not run into nearly the amount of bugs in Jedi Survivor as I did with Jedi Fallen Order. Not even close. And I didn't even think Jedi Fallen Order was like a drastically just awful, unplayable experience or anything like that. It was mildly buggy. In my experience, once again, Jedi Survivor is much less buggy than even that. So, you know, take that for what you will. Everybody's experience is different, and I'm not trying to sit here and defend the state that the game was released in for PC, but I'm just giving you my experience. My experience has been really, really great, and I am loving this game. Getting the flying mounts and then traversing that way, getting the rideable mounts, traversing that way, seeing these vistas, seeing these locations. It's a spectacle. It's a Star Wars epic adventure, and getting to play it in video game form. And also, how fucking lucky are we? In the year of 2023, we have Hogwarts Legacy, an epic incredible video game. Star Wars Jedi Survivor, epic, incredible video game. And we're going to get Spider-Man 2, likely. Like, what a great year for licensed video games. We used to never get shit like this back in the day. And yeah, I'm pumped, man. A great year to be a fan of video games. And another one, we talked about Dredge last week, sneaking up there into my Game of the Year charts. Jedi Survivor, climbing up those charts. I'm not going to make definitive claims at this moment because I haven't finished the game. By next week, I should have finished the game, and I will, I'll tell you guys, I'll let you guys know where I'm at on it next week. Right now, where my brain is, absolutely a Game of the Year contender. Absolutely up there. And if it continues at this clip, very much up there. I don't see it at the end of the year at the Keeleys winning the Game Awards. I don't see it winning Game of the Year, even being nominated, probably because of the state that it launched in. But for those of you who are going to play this thing on console, or on PS5 specifically, like I said, I'm playing it on PS5. I don't know what the Xbox performance is. I'm sure it's similar to PS5. And for those of you playing on Xbox and PS5, I think you're gonna have a damn good time. And for those of you Star Wars fans out there, I'm really pumped to hear your thoughts on this game. And if you are playing it, if you are a big time Star Wars fan, and hit me up in the comments. Even if you have a different experience, like I'm always open to hearing other people's thoughts and perspective. And like, I'm not saying my experience with this game is the one and only definitive fucking experience. I've seen many other people who are saying that they're having a real rough go with it. But for me, I gotta say, I am not at all. Looking through my notes here to make sure I haven't missed anything that I wanted to talk about. I will say this. This is my one big complaint with the game. I do think that the map still kind of sucks. It sucked in the original. I think it still kind of sucks in this one. I get it. There's this new trend of no markers on the screen telling you where to go because hardcore real experiences, brother. Just give me the option. Just give me the fucking option to put a marker on my screen, or have a little compass, a little, sort of navigation system that just pops up on my screen where I can kind of, the fun of the game for me isn't really figuring out where to go. It's seeing what is there when I get there. That's really what I enjoy. I don't really share those sentiments of like the fun of the game is the sense of wonder and the exploration when you're not knowing where you're going. Like, I can get those same feelings knowing where the fuck I want to go. And then whenever you get to like a puzzle solving situation, you obviously you're not going to tell people exactly where to go to solve the puzzle. Like, leave those things up for interpretation and up to people to solve and figure out on their own. But like, just getting to the next point of the story, like, come on, man. We don't, not everything has to be fucking Breath of the Wild and Elden Ring. This is a cool ass Star Wars game, fun ass third person action adventure game with some, it's bigger scale. It's a bigger scale world, but it's not an open world. It's linear enough. You know what I mean? Throw a marker on the screen and give people the option. Everything's like this, everything is becoming more and more accessible, yet the features like that are being removed. And it's like, that's a pretty fucking core accessibility feature, I would say, and maybe you can argue that's not necessarily accessibility, that's just a preference. But for me, I just like having it. I just like having it there. Don't get me wrong. I wander around so much in Jedi Survivor, just fucking around, just going off, meeting a random stranger. They tell me about, oh, I heard something's over there. You get this beautiful view if you go and check it out over that way. And I'm going over, just checking shit out, looking around, like having a great time. It's not like not having those markers on the screen is preventing me from having a great time with the game. It's not that big of a complaint, but it is, I would say, a fairly, I would, in my opinion, that's a legitimate complaint that I have with the game, that I think it, if that option was available to just have a little waypoint on your screen, I think it would drastically improve my overall experience, especially when I want to do the linear main path of the story. Whenever I just want to explore, cool, I don't really need it. But when I get to the main path of the story, I do think that would having that functionality, having that, just that option, would improve the experience quite a bit for me. So I do want to throw that complaint out there. Also want to say there is a villain named Ravis, I believe. Ravis. Excellent. Excellent voice acting. So good. Cannot wait to see where the journey ends up taking me with that character, because I can tell he is going to play a very pivotal role. From the moment I met that guy, I was like, this motherfucker, I'm keeping my eye on old Ravis there. He god tier voice acting. So I know that something big, it has to be coming down the line with him. Oh, they have like you get to recruit for this little outpost, so you can bring different people. You go off and you do like the side quests, and if you help the people, you help the characters, you get to bring them back to this outpost, and you are building up this outpost. Like I went and met some people, and now they have like a little card game going on at this saloon that we're building up. And I went up, and I'm, when you go and you can find different plants and shit, and you like slash the plants, you get the seed, you can go up to the top of the saloon and plant you a little garden up there. And I found a guy who he has some sort, he's like running an aquarium at the saloon now. Went and found him, did a mission for him, helped him out. He's running the damn aquarium at the saloon, cleaning it out. It's just, it's little fun little things like that, where you go and find this one droid, and there's these data discs that you find out in the world. And once you meet this droid, he comes up to the saloon and he opens up a shop where you can trade the data discs and get rewards in return for the negotiation with him. And it's just like, I don't know, it's so much more lived in, it's so much more involved, there's so much more going on in Jedi Survivor. It's just, I would really like to see the budget difference that Respawn had for Fallen Order versus the budget that they had for Jedi Survivor. I would not be surprised at all if this is like an extra $100 million on top of the first game. This is legitimately a humongous AAA video game with so many moving parts going on, and you're talking about all your force abilities, all your lightsaber abilities, all those different traversal abilities, and then having the town building fucking section added in there on top of the top tier cinematics, on top of the top tier voice acting. It's great. It is really, really great. This is like what AAA games, this is what I want from them. This is what I want, and this is what I expect. Top fucking tier, where you feel the budget when you're playing this game. You feel that fucking budget when you're playing this game. So it's great. It's absolutely great. Once again, my experience has been wonderful. I do not discount or discredit the many of people who have had a rough experience, specifically the people on PC. So I also finished Dead Island 2 last week, and I don't have a ton that I really want to add to the conversation with Dead Island 2. I think pretty much my thoughts last week are still the same thoughts that I have this week. I think it's an okay game. Like, it's an okay 6.5, 7.5, 6.5 to 7 out of 10 game in my experience. It was just very one note for me. It was very, very simplistic, and there was, I will say, a nice kind of difficulty spike that, like, once again, I'm not the biggest fan of overly difficult games, but the game was so easy for so long that the difficulty spike was actually kind of warranted, and I was like, okay, that's justified. I'm down to actually think a little bit more in these battles. And so I think the game got quite a bit more fun for like the last 4 hours, and it's a real short game. There's a lot of side questing you can do and stuff, and I did some of it, but I just never felt all that compelled to go around and do a bunch of side questing. The characters aren't all that well written. You know what you're getting when you pick up Dead Island 2. You're not jumping into this for some nail biter, some epic narrative or anything like that. It's fun zombie slaughtering, simplistic gameplay loops that you're looking to engage with. And if you're looking for something more than that, stay far away from Dead Island 2. But for what it did, I will say I was impressed technically that it ran so smoothly. I had very little to no issues with this game at all. I thought the shooting was fine. I thought the parry system was decent enough, fun enough. There is a fun little twist midway or so through the game where you unlock a new ability that is fun to engage with. I won't spoil it just because, I mean, I don't think many of you really care, but the plot was decent enough, simple enough, okay cinematics, okay characters. I truth be told, man, it really didn't click with me in any real meaningful way. It was a game that I had a hard time staying locked into for more than like an hour at a time. I would play it for about an hour and I was like, that's about all I can take of this. And I would just, played it for an hour to maybe 8 times, six to 8 different playthroughs for an hour or two, finished it up. And I was like, okay, I'm happy to move on from this experience. I do think that some of the locations are cool. Like I talked about, I think Venice Beach is excellent in that game. I love that recreation. I think it looks amazing. The cityscape, the kind of interactable environments and the interactable hazards, the environmental hazards that are on offer in Venice Beach. I think that's the best location in the game by far. And there's a cool little section that's in the main story and a side quest involving it where you're in this like movie set and there's like explosives you can hit and shit. Like there are some cool moments in Dead Island 2. Just overall, it's one of those games for me personally that just didn't click with me all the way. Good enough, fine enough, like 7 out of 10 style experience. My biggest complaint with it is the investigation sequences. There's like moments where they're actually slowing down the game and forcing you to investigate like areas to find clues and shit. It's like, dude, you think you're the Witcher? What the fuck you got? Don't slow this down. It's so tedious to where like, oh, find this contraption underneath a desk. Find this switch underneath a desk. It's like, sure, man, sure. If that's what you want to do, sure. It just was very tedious and broke up the pace of the game that it already had, in my opinion, pacing issues because it's just very, very similar. It's fun enough, the gameplay is decent enough, but it's a very similar loop that you're repeating nonstop. I do like, having an electric fucking knife, a knife with you upgrade and you have like an electrical element attached to it, and you throw the knife into a pool with a bunch of zombies standing in the pool. You electrocute the shit out of all of them. That's never not going to be fun. But by and large, I would say it was an okay game. One that I wasn't miserable getting through, but there were definitely segments where I was like, I'm by the end of the whatever 12 or so hours of me playing it, I was like, I'm very much ready to call this a wrap. It's objectively not bad, but did not land for me personally at all. Like, no chance I'll ever replay this. All right, and I went back and played some damn Hi-Fi Rush. I finished it up. Like I said, Dead Island 2 was much shorter than I expected, and finished it in 15 hours or so. And then I was like, well, I had a few days until Jedi Survivor came out, so I was like, Hi-Fi Rush is the number one, like, on my backlog of 2023 games. The one that I was like, I did not give this a fair shake at all. And going back to it, I finished it up. I booted the game up and I was like, I'm going to pull up a YouTube playthrough to see where I'm at in terms of where am I versus how far do I have left to go. And I booted up a playthrough. I was like 4 hours and 30 minutes in, and the playthrough was only like 7 hours long. So I was like, oh shit, dude, I'm right next to the finish line. I'll just burn through this in a couple days. And I did. And it's such a simple game to go back to. You know, it's so... there's just not a ton of mechanical complexity with Hi-Fi Rush. And I think that, you know, talking about Dead Island 2 and the simplicity there, it's just something about it with Hi-Fi Rush really worked with me. And I think it is because there's, you know, like Dying Light 2, there's so much on offer with the traversal, with the parkour systems. Like you're constantly doing other things than just the battles, because the battles are fine. It's a good like first person melee combat system in Dying Light 2, but the majority of the fun, I would say, really comes from the parkouring and running away from the zombies at night and shit. And like that's a big thing missing in Dead Island 2, and along with not having, you know, not having fucking decision making and a good narrative to follow. Regardless, not trying to rain on Dead Island 2's parade, but the thing about Hi-Fi Rush is, yeah, it has very, very simple battles. Like it's a rhythm based Devil May Cry inspired title that is really, really easy, really simple. I think where it becomes something more than that with Hi-Fi Rush is that the platforming is top tier. So fun, and you get a different character later in the game, not to spoil anything, but she adds a new dynamic to the platforming that becomes like a time-based loop where you're having to you know, do this on the fly platforming, puzzle solving to get to the destination. And like the it's just constantly so fun. The collectathon nature of it. It's such a fun, charming, inviting world that you want to explore every inch of every location, and you don't want to miss any of the collectibles. You want to, you know, grab up all the parts and all the gear. Like it's just so fun, man. It's so fun. And the animation work in Hi-Fi Rush, this should have been greenlit to be a cartoon like the day it came out. It is top tier animation with once again, the characters are just so charming. You know, Chai and Mac, and like these characters are it would work so well in the form of a weekly episodic cartoon. They're just such a delight to be around. It's very similar, in my opinion, to like Guardians of the Galaxy. It has that very similar like ragtag thrown together crew that you end up just loving by the end of your experience. And yeah, I like I said when I first played it, I'm awful at the parry system and the timing. I have the rhythm of a true fucking white boy. And it's crazy because my dad is a fucking great singer, very rhythmatic, if that's even a word. He's very musically inclined. He is a great musician and has great rhythm. I ain't got none of that shit. That shit definitely skipped a fucking generation. I have zero of that. Can't none of that. Zero. And so I was struggling with the parrying at the right time and dodging at the right time. And there's one boss in particular in the game where you literally, the entirety of it is having to parry. And that probably took me, that one fight probably took me like 40 minutes. The majority, like, because I was so conservative with the way I built Chai and the way I customized his character with the upgrades and shit. I went and got the health tank, where if your health is full, anytime you grab a consumable health item, it fills up this tank. And then at any moment, if you end up quote unquote dying in a boss fight or in a fight in general, the health tank, it will deplete what is there and give that to Chai, to where it pretty much revives him immediately. And so I had that, and then I also had that my special move was that Chai pops open a damn a Coke or a soda or an energy drink, whatever, and he consumes it, and it pretty much just completely replenishes his health. So I was just stacked up with health. So none of the boss encounters, none of the, like, I breezed through all of that shit no problem. The only issues I ever had were with the pairing and with the timing. I was so bad at that. And I love, I've been playing character action games, hack and slash games forever. God of War and Devil May Cry and Bayonetta. Like, I love those games. So I'm familiar with how to play those, but damn rhythm games. I'm so bad at it. But it didn't hurt my experience much at all. Look, would I say that Hi-Fi Rush is a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 game? No. But it's a fun, like double A feeling, but so polished and so refined and so smooth that you can actually feel the money behind it. But it's short, it's linear, it's simple. It, but it's I keep going back to this word, charming and cozy and inviting. And yeah, I had a great time with it. By the end of the story, I was totally invested in the characters, and I'm really glad I went back and finished it. Like I said, I think it's a good solid 8 out of 10 style game in my opinion. All right, so I'm going to kick it over now to the unnecessary news live thing, the clip that I pulled out from the live stream. Like I said, I just want to reiterate here, just want to warn you, the audio quality is going to take quite a hit. The audio's not going to be great, but I think it's passable, and I just don't want to repeat myself about this Microsoft Activision acquisition thing. So here's that. I hope you all enjoy that, and then we'll get on with the remakes. And of course, the first story that we got to talk about is the bummer. Eh, we'll talk about why it's a bummer in a second, but we have from Tom Warren here at The Verge. Breaking: Microsoft's Activision Blizzard acquisition has been blocked by the CMA. The UK regulators say the merger would cause harm to competition in cloud gaming in the UK. Microsoft says it will appeal. And so of course this has been and the reason I say that this is a bummer isn't really because I care one way or the other if the deal goes through. It's a bummer because I'm bummed that we have to keep talking about this shit. We're going to be talking about this into 2024 at this point, and I'm just ready to see Sony, to see Xbox, to see them get back out there peacocking with their chest out, showing you the exclusives, letting you know what's coming. And it seems that as of late, with this acquisition, with this deal, they've been trying to be as conservative, be as reserved as possible, and not really show you, both of them, PlayStation and Xbox, not really show you what they got cooking up. And that bums me out because I really want to see like all the different exclusives, all the different games. Like, I don't care about this deal one way or the other. The only reason I even somewhat care about the deal is because, well, for one, Activision seemed to be an incredibly toxic place to work. And of course, you want people to be in the best workplace possible and clean up a lot of that toxicity that seemed to be surrounding Activision. Of course, that's the obvious. But from a consumer standpoint, I'm like looking at Toys for Bob, I'm looking at Ravensoft, I'm looking at, these other teams, and talking about Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 remake. I want to see a Tony Hawk Underground 1 and 2 remake. And so I'm looking at all these different teams who have been kind of relegated into this cog in the machine that is Call of Duty. And I'm like, fuck. I really, more than anything, want these teams to be freed from that shackle and go off and get some new Spyro content out there, some new Crash, which we do have the Crash Team. What is it? Crash Team Rumble, I believe. So we got some shit in the works, but that's kind of the only major. And I'd like to see Prototype 1 and 2 pop up on Game Pass. I'd like to see maybe some of those classic Activision titles pop up, or the classic Activision tie-in titles pop up on Game Pass. So that'd be like the only real reason I would root for the deal to go through. Other than that, I don't really care one way or the other. But it seems that a lot of the concern is regarding this cloud infrastructure, which we'll get into here. I really want to read. Okay. Yeah, Microsoft had attempted to address concerns around cloud gaming in the lead up to this decision. The software giant signed cloud gaming deals with Boosteroid, Ubitus, Ubisoft and Nvidia to allow Xbox PC games to run on these rival cloud gaming services after striking a similar deal with Nintendo in December. These 10-year deals also include access to Call of Duty and other Activision Blizzard games if the deal is approved by regulators. The CMA says it has examined these deals, but that they contain a number of significant shortcomings in cloud gaming services. The CMA says the deals are too limited in scope, with models that meant gamers had to acquire the rights to play games by purchasing them on certain stores or subscribing to certain services. The deals didn't include agreements for Microsoft providing access to these games in rival multi-game subscription services or the ability for rivals to offer versions of games on PC operating systems other than Windows. The CMA also noted that the deals would standardize the terms and conditions on which games are available instead of open competition in the cloud gaming market. We concluded that without the merger, Activision games would become available on cloud gaming services in the UK in the near future. So it seems like everything is kind of in regards to this cloud ecosystem that they're worrying that Microsoft could possibly develop a monopoly over the cloud gaming ecosystem is seemingly what a lot of that reads there. Once again, I recommend following the Tom Warrens, the Benji Sales, the Hogue Laws, a lot of different outlets out there who are Michael Pachter, people who are analysts in the video game financial realm or just have a little bit more insight than I do to get into the specifics there, especially even with cloud. That's not my forte at all. But the interesting point that I saw today while scrolling through the old cesspool that is Twitter is this little tidbit that I found very, very fascinating. It says here, if this thing will load, for Christopher Dring from GamesIndustry.biz. He says every analyst that we spoke to predicts Microsoft will end up spending the money on other studios and games, meaning the $68.7 billion that they spent on Activision Blizzard King. Every analyst that GamesIndustry.biz spoke to is saying that they think that the money will be spent on other games and other studios. So the implication here is very interesting. Where this could go is very interesting because are we looking at what does studios mean? Does that mean developers, like individual developers that are not owned by a publisher or a larger entity? Because then you're looking at like only a handful and none that you could buy almost everyone on the market who's independent and be under $68.7 billion. So it's like Remedy, CD Project Red. I, I mean, there's really not a ton. I mean, trying to think about teams they've had partnerships with in the past. Bloober, maybe for they had that exclusive deal for the medium. Um, they're working with Avalanche on that Contraband title. I always get the two confused. I believe Avalanche Software was the team that developed Hogwarts, and I think Avalanche Game Studio is the team that worked on Mad Max and Just Cause and is now working on the Contraband title. So is that kind of the avenues that you're looking to explore? Are you looking to go in and buy individual teams out of different publishing arms? Like, are you looking to strike a deal with Embracer to go and grab Crystal Dynamics? Is Embracer looking to get back some of their $300 million that they spent on that freaking steal of a deal last year with Square Enix? Can you go in and grab up fucking Crystal Dynamics, who's leading up the development on Perfect Dark? Can you go and grab them for 100 mil? Like, it's just an interesting theory there. Which I'm sure it'd probably be even more than 100 mil at this point, but it's like I do kind of wonder, what if Perfect Dark is a huge hit? Do you possibly live in a world where Perfect Dark becomes a huge hit. You greenlight a sequel for it immediately because it performs so well, and you don't own the team that led up the development for it, or led up a lot of the development for it. I wouldn't think that would be a position that Microsoft would want to really find themselves in. So, of course, I'm not saying I doubt Embracer would be willing to sell Crystal Dynamics unless they got a great ass deal out of it, which would be hilarious if Microsoft spent more to just acquire Crystal Dynamics than Embracer paid for the entire $300 million acquisition of Eidos Montreal, the mobile team, and Crystal Dynamics with like 40 fucking IP attached to it. You look at it, EA, could they go in and want to grab BioWare with all the issues that BioWare has had with EA in the past, and all the hurdles, and then the hoops that have been had to jump through with developing for the fucking, was it the Frostbite engine or whatever, with EA. And BioWare's had so much trouble with that in the past, and there's been a lot of like open spats between EA executives and BioWare developers. Um, so is that like a possibility? You know, I- is it even, because you look at like EA or Xbox's history with Jade Empire and Knights of the Old Republic, and these titles that were exclusive to Xbox at the time. Well, console exclusive to Xbox at the time. And is there anywhere where you can go in and kind of make those like one-off acquisitions, those one-off deals to acquire a developer up under the big publishing arm? It's just it's going to be interesting if this deal falls through for a lot of different reasons, to see exactly what direction Xbox transitions to make up that cost, because once again you're talking about $68.7 billion. That's a ton of fucking money, a ton of money. And I'm not sure that there's enough independent developers in the world for you to spend that money on. And it says here as well, spending money on studios, or spending money on games as well as studios. That's probably where a lot of that money is going to be spent, just with like one-off third-party deals for exclusive rights to fucking, I don't know. You talking about acquiring publishers. Maybe you start looking, okay, I'm going to get the one-off rights to the new Jet Set Radio Future game. I'm going to get the one-off rights to different shit that Sega has going on, since they've had like an ongoing relationship there. And if there is a possibility of acquiring like bigger publishers, you do look to a Sega who's kind of been like, Xbox was sort of the Dreamcast 2, if you will, the continuation of Sega's legacy, with Shenmue 2 coming to Xbox, and with Jet Set Radio Future coming exclusive to Xbox. And so they've had this ongoing relationship with Sega, with Persona, the classic Persona games just launching on Game Pass, with Yakuza launching, or not launching, but with Yakuza coming to Game Pass. And they seem to have a strong relationship there. But and also Sega just acquired that mobile developer. I forget the name. I think it was mobile developer for Angry Birds or Candy Crush. It was a big time mobile developer, and they acquired them to get more into the mobile space. So is Sega a possible reality where we see Microsoft acquiring Sega? Is it a possible reality where we see Microsoft acquiring Ubisoft, who seems to be probably the most in need of acquisition, of being acquired by anybody out there, in my opinion? Um, I don't mean to be so disrespectful to Ubisoft, but it's like, it's just a lot of blunders, one after another. And it would be nice to live in a world where we do see Beyond Good and Evil 2 release, or hell, imagine living in a world where we see Beyond Good and Evil 2, Splinter Cell, Prince of Persia, all this stuff that would be great content for Game Pass. And once again, I'm typically not in favor of humongous acquisitions on this scale. I'm typically not in favor of spending billions and billions of dollars for one monolithic corporation to gobble up another monolithic corporation to develop this dystopic future where we're all living under three companies who rule the world. Like, that shit sucks. But I don't know if we're talking about how to spend that money. Like, what is Ubisoft? Ubisoft, you could probably grab them for $10 billion, I would think. So you're still left with $58.7 billion to spend, you know, and now you're not gonna probably buy a EA or a Capcom or anything like that, because then you're looking at being in the exact same situation that you're in now, where the regulators are going to do the exact same thing that they did before. And it's like, can Madden go exclusively to your cloud services, or are those restrictions going to be enough to prevent regulators from stopping a deal if you tried to acquire EA or if you tried to acquire Take Two, which it's Activision's probably bigger than Take Two, if I'm not mistaken. But regardless, like those EA, Take Two, Activision, Blizzard, like those are a different league. But I think if they went to acquire a Ubisoft or a Sega, I don't think that would be met with quite as much pushback. Could be wrong. Um, I truly don't know. I'm not an expert in this field. That is apparent. Like I said, I would recommend going and following people who are much more knowledgeable in this field to break this stuff down. But the it like a Sobo would be an obvious one of a team that they would acquire, but I think they'll probably do that regardless. That's, with Microsoft Flight Sim, Plague Tale Requiem, and Innocence, with Requiem and Flight Sim both being Game Pass day one titles. Um, there's not a ton of options. Well, I mean, there is a ton of options on the table, but not a ton I could think of that make a whole lot of sense other than these big like Warner Brothers, Sega, Ubisoft, Take Two, EA to make up for that $68.7 billion uh, acquisition. If the deal does end up getting blocked, which it's not looking great. Okay, welcome back to the actual show that we're recording here right now. Thank you for listening to the news section there about the Microsoft thing. So we are two final topics to close out the show. Going to run through both of them fairly quickly here. Try not to take up too much of your time. We're going to start it off with the 10 remakes we need ASAP. The 10 games I want remade soon. And I could probably put together 100 more of these lists. There's so many games, so many classics that I want to see remade. But let's start it off here with number 10. And this is in no particular order, just 10 games I want to see remade. First one, Death Row. For those of you who don't know what Death Row is, and I don't blame you, it's a really odd game, but it's so unique. It was a OG Xbox exclusive, might have been on PC as well, but it was console exclusive to the original Xbox. And this game is essentially, it's a sports game, like a totally unique, brand new sport that was introduced for this game that blends football, hockey, and basketball all into this like very chaotic, hyper violent, just wild ass concoction of a sport. And I don't know, I just think a game like this could really make some cash in today's, live service space. And really in the sports gaming space in general, because there's we're lacking uniqueness in that space, or anybody trying anything all that innovative. Everything is, NFL licensed, NBA licensed, NHL licensed. This is like, what was it's reminiscent of something like a Rocket League, but for a more mature, audience that's okay with gritty, gory fucking violence taking place, and but it's blending sports that we all know and love. And yeah, I'm not a live service game fan at all, but I think in terms of something that could get me into it, this Death Row game I think would absolutely work for people like me who are really not into those games at all. But this just offers up something so unique where you have combat elements going on, and you have the you know you got the ball that you're palming and trying to throw it into the hoop while avoiding being tackled. And so it's like it's familiar in the setup of what you're doing to achieve to win the game, but it's so unique in the like it's so unique in just how it's incorporating and mashing everything up all together. So I don't know. I think this thing could really work in today's space, especially if it was modernized up a little bit, polished up a little bit, and maybe you could explore some of those combat elements a little bit more. Taking from your NHL blitzes and or your NHL hits and your NFL blitz games, and just allowing you to go to fucking war, beating the shit out of each other, having like having a section of the game that's just that. After each quarter you get to go and engage in like a straight up brawl or some shit, and then the winner of that brawl gets some benefit or some boost going into the second quarter. Like there's cool ways you can tinker with that format and come up with something that I think would be really cool in today's like live service marketplace, which I'm not a fan of inherently, but I do think that would be a cool game to see brought back in that space. Number 9, or next up, this is in no order, The Godfather for the PS2. Such an underrated open world Grand Theft Auto inspired title. Not enough people talk about this. I don't think enough people know about this game for the PS2. It was really great. You got to create a character and take him into the world of The Godfather, experiencing some of the most iconic moments from the films. And it's a bummer to me that these gangster style movies just completely have not been like adapted into video games since that era. And yeah, I would just love to see something like this come back, where you create a character, get to experience some of the big moments from the Godfather movie. Like it could literally be a straight up remake, or which once again, licensing issues, all that, I'm sure that would be a nightmare. But to just have a Godfather licensed game that's a very similar setup to this, but getting to experience that shit with modern graphical fidelity, and like I just think that would be so sick, especially with a modern GTA inspired open world to go and explore. And yeah, I would absolutely love that. I loved in the Godfather they had where I shouldn't say business management, because it's literally you're going into people's businesses and you're just roughing these motherfuckers up, trying to get more money out of them. Just vile shit. But it was so fun. It was like a little mini game added in there where you're going and roughing up their shop, and you can't go too far, but you got to get like that right amount so that you'll increase the amount of money that they're willing to give you. So silly, so fun. I loved the damn Godfather on the PS2. We got to see that come back. Next one I'm going to run through really quick here. I've talked about this next one 1,045 fucking times. Dino Crisis and Resident Evil Code Veronica. Capcom, you're running out of remakes. Go remake Resident Evil 1. I know you're going to remake the remake. I'm all there for that. I would absolutely love that. After that, let's not jump to Resident Evil 5. Let's go Code Veronica, then Dino Crisis. It's what the people want, man. The people that we're clamoring for some damn Dino Crisis. Dino Crisis might be number 1, honestly. I want to see some modern dinosaur horror going on. I think that would just be so sick today, running on the RE engine, seeing the big ass dinosaurs with the kind of nemesis mechanics where they're chasing you, and the spontaneous, popping up out of nowhere. Similar to how like Mr. X was in Resident Evil 2, and kind of how Nemesis was in RE3, but that was a little bit more, planned in RE3. But the spontaneous sort of battles that could take place and shit, it would just be so cool to see that in on modern consoles. But Code Veronica 2, that's a story that needs to be told. It's a great Claire story. It's I just love the Ashford family. I love the setup that they have there with Wesker, and it's a very, very difficult, inaccessible game. I mean, you can play it on modern systems and shit, but it's really, really hard. So to see that cleaned up and polished up a little bit more, yeah, we got to see Dino Crisis and Code Veronica at some point. And I think we will. I think Capcom knows there's a lot of money on the table there. Next up, Simpsons Hit and Run. Once again, talking about licensed games, and I think I have one more licensed game on the list here, or two technically, but Simpsons Hit and Run. There's been rumors of this returning for a while, but lately it seems to have kind of died out completely. But this for me was an all-time classic on the PS2. Once again, a GTA inspired open world, but getting to explore Springfield. You're going around with Homer and Bart, all these iconic characters while driving around and doing street races, and you can get out on foot and kind of engage in some light combat and chase down collectibles and shit. It's just a ridiculously fun, awesome license game that came out in an era of really rough license games, and this was one that absolutely avoided that curse. And just once again talking about seeing this modernized, seeing a modern version of Springfield, running that on your PS5, on your Series X, I just think that would be so cool. And it seems that The Simpsons maybe aren't as relevant as they used to be, of course, but I think that the fanfare is there. If this was, and this is one that I don't think I would really want to see a reboot or a spiritual successor, or like I would want a full on remake, because I think the name alone, Simpsons Hit and Run, I think that holds a lot of weight. So I would want to see it come back as just Simpsons Hit and Run, the remake, or just straight up Simpsons Hit and Run. I how like Resident Evil 2, it's not Resident Evil 2 remake, it's just Resident Evil 2 now. So I would love to see something like that for Simpsons Hit and Run. Next up, kind of a licensed game, whatever you want to call it, Tony Hawk's Underground 1 and 2. And talking about great fucking remakes, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 in 2020, I believe. So solid. Incredible remake, staying so true to the original, but improving it, modernizing it in every way, taking the best mechanics from some of the later Tony Hawk Pro Skater games, introducing those into 1 and 2 that weren't there originally. And for me personally, I always enjoyed Underground a little bit more because I'm such a big fan of open worlds. And getting the creative character, getting the having the voice acting in there, having the ability to like hop off of your board, and a real storyline to follow along with. Like I really loved Underground 1 and 2. 1 was a little bit more grounded. 2 was so silly and over the top, and yeah, I would love to see both of them brought back. I could see that maybe being a little bit more difficult than like the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 package. So maybe a 1 remake would suffice. And then if that did well, maybe get Underground 2 made possibly. But 1 would be fine with me. Just Tony Hawk Underground 1 remake, would love to see that. Next up, Parasite Eve, a game that could maybe benefit from a remake more than almost anything on the market. That game is tailor-made for modern audiences. With the renaissance of survival horror in the AAA space, and this story for Parasite Eve. It's this scientifically the scientific intrigue there with the horror elements combined. And the Parasite Eve, it had no voice acting on the PS1. So getting to have all of that lore told to you with some solid voice acting and great performances there with some damn good motion capture. And I'm not saying this has to be a $200 million production by Square Enix, because Lord knows that every goddamn time they put money into a game, they call it a failure. But even if this was a smaller scale title with some just good voice acting and some decent production value, and obviously, moving away from the turn-based combat, going to the Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, RE4 style. Well, we'll go more RE2 because of the strict survival horror focus to that gameplay. Having that in a Parasite Eve remake would be absolutely fucking phenomenal. And I really do think if they wanted to pour money into it and have that, like small open world, have that a little bit more explorable, where, you know, in the original you just kind of, you pick the destination and you travel to it, and like, but imagine actually being able to traverse to those locations. Would just be so sick. Next up, Knights of the Old Republic. And I know that this is allegedly in the works, but I think we all know that that's probably never going to see the light of day, unfortunately. And it's such a bummer, because similar to Parasite Eve, I can't really think of any game I've played ever that I would like to see remade more than Knights of the Old Republic and Parasite Eve. And once again, what we heard that Aspyr was attempting to do just had, man, it had my attention. It had my ears perked up. I was ready. They were taking inspiration from Final Fantasy VII, the remake, supposedly, with like having the mild turn-based strategic element there, but really leaning into the action-oriented combat. Imagine that, dude. Having the decision-making, having the BioWare heavy narrative that they delivered in the Knights of the Old Republic, the original game, but with the fucking great action gameplay that you got from Final Fantasy VII Remake, and being able to pull all that shit off from Knights of the Old Republic in real-time combat would, golly, that would just be so sick. It would be so sick. A dream remake. And whenever it got announced that it was kind of in development hell, with Aspyr being pulled from it and Saber Active being put on it, and it bummed me out. It really, really bummed me out, because that's a game that I would just love to see that thing remade, and I don't think it's going to happen. So once again, 10 remakes we need ASAP. I'm going to throw Knights of the Old Republic on there, because I think if we're ever going to see it's probably going to have to be a remade version of this remake. So hopefully it sees the light of day, but my hopes are not too high on that. I would love to be proven wrong, and you guys know, when I take an L, I'll eat it, I'll wear it. I will happily take that L if we can see KOTOR pop back up at some point. Next up, Legacy of Kain. The whole series, the Blood Omens, the fucking all that shit. This is a series that is so appealing to me. And everything else that I've talked about here, I've played all these games. Legacy of Kain, I know I have played them, I'm sure. Like, I see the box art. I'm sure I rented it at some point at Blockbuster, but I have no memories of these games. So it's like, I just want to jump back into them so bad, but there are a lot of these motherfuckers, like a lot of games that I have to go and track down, and, you know, from the PS1 to the PS2, like, it would just be so nice to have a complete package or a rebooted version of Legacy of Kain that kind of combines a lot of these stories together, and you just get like this one epic 70-hour adventure. Or, you know, just, we can keep it simple. Remake the first one, start there, nice 8-hour game, then go to the second and the third, and however the fuck it was laid out. But just this vampiric fucking mild horror influence with the hack and slash gameplay, and the tone just looks so cool. It just looks so sick. And I mean, I know Embracer is talking about wanting to remake those games or reboot them in some form or fashion. And so I'm hoping that I can just hold off a little bit, and that we will get these remakes. But if we don't start hearing some rumblings on that at some point, I'm just going to have to go find all the old games and do a real replay or first time playthrough, honestly, of those games. So I'm hoping that by 2024 or so, we'll have an announcement for those remakes. I think we will have at least an announcement for like the first remake or a reboot of the franchise. I do believe we'll see that sometime soon. All right, next up, another one that comes with a little bit of an asterisk: Metal Gear Solid 1 through 3. I know 3 is like the big rumor that it's in the works. I don't understand why Metal Gear Solid 1 isn't being remade first. I know, like, technically MGS3 is the first game, but like, the way that it was told originally just made more sense to me. I think, like, I feel like you have to have the knowledge or the investment from 1 and 2 to really appreciate 3. But I'm sure that there's some way, if Blue Point's working on it, I'm sure, you know, working alongside Konami, I'm sure that they can figure out some way. of tying shit up and making it all make sense. But my big fear is, once again, similar with Konami, Silent Hill 1 not getting remade, but 2 getting remade. And it's like, I really, really hope that MGS1 isn't like off the table for a remake, or MGS2 isn't off the table for a remake. I definitely would have much preferred to go MGS1, 2, 3, Silent Hill 1, 2, 3, however they ended up doing that. Remake them in the order, but once again, you can kind of argue with Resident Evil 2 being remade and not the remake of 1, that sets a kind of weird precedent there. But you're talking about remaking regardless, Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2, I really do hope we get those remakes as well as 3. And fucking A, we don't know if 3 is a real thing yet or not. So I'm including that in there as well, because all we have to go off right now about MGS3 are a bunch of rumors. Konami does seem to be back in the game, licensing out their titles and striving to get these on modern consoles remade and modernized to the liking of the current audience. So I'm hoping that is the case. But also Metal Gear Solid 4 locked to the fucking PlayStation 3. Get that damn thing off and then remake that motherfucker as well. Might as well. And finally, to close off the list, I should have put this together with KOTOR, but Star Wars Bounty Hunter. And I know that this is a weird one because I'm not saying a direct remake of that game, but just a new Star Wars Bounty Hunter game. We need to see a new Star Wars Bounty Hunter game. You're talking about the huge success of The Mandalorian. It became a humongous hit television series, and no Bounty Hunter games. And EA, there's no EA shackles attached to the Star Wars license at this point. You would think that by now we would have an announcement for a big, high-budget Star Wars Bounty Hunter title. I think Amy Hennig is working on a Star Wars game, which I could see that being a Bounty Hunter game based off of her expertise in the past, or which she's, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, like a lead writer for the Star Wars game. Once again, correct me if I'm wrong on this shit, but yeah, I could see that game potentially being a Bounty Hunter game. Ubisoft has that open world Star Wars game, but for some reason I'm feeling like that might be, I don't know, I think a Bounty Hunter game could possibly be the open world game, especially if they have vehicles and shit that they're exploring around with. But with I could also see that being another Jedi game with just the third person sort of melee pedigree that but I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, that it's the team that made The Division that is working on the Star Wars Ubisoft game. Once again, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong on all this shit going off the top of my dome here. But regardless of all that, a Star Wars Bounty Hunter game, I do hope that there's one in the works. I have a hard time believing that there's not anything at all in the works. And I just loved that PS2 game, having the jetpack, and that was kind of like the puzzle solving, traversal puzzle solving, where you have the fuel and you can't use up too much of the fuel to get to the next platform that you're trying to reach. So you're timing everything out perfectly, and the strategy that was involved in that, and the shooting was solid enough. And I really, really enjoyed that PS2 Star Wars Bounty Hunter game. So something similar to that, I would love to see that remade. So those are the 10 remakes that we need to see ASAP Rocky. I hope that we get at least a few of these. I think we will get a couple of these for sure, but most of them probably pipe dreams, but that's okay. All right, rapid fire, running through these top 10 PlayStation 4 games, already running pretty long here. Gonna run through these real quick, get out your hair. Number 10, The Evil Within 1. Incredible survival horror game, like true survival horror game with psychological horror elements fused in there as well. Great main boss with Ruvik. Great fucking boss battle. One of my favorite survival horror boss battles of all time. I believe the second encounter with Laura, the setup there where you're trying to strategically plan out how you're going to incinerate her and fucking burn her ass alive. And there's also such a great focus of being able to escape boss encounters and just trying to make it out alive, like the key element of survival, just trying to escape and get out alive. And not enough survival horror games implement that the escape elements, and you can actually just get out of boss fights a couple times in the Evil Within 1, which I thought was great. Number 9, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I jumped into it purely because it had decision making, and I'm a sucker for decision making. I thought the decision making was pretty good in Odyssey, not great, but pretty damn good. A couple moments that were really, really stand out, really memorable. Just I love just exploring. It's such a vibrant, beautiful world, and you're diving down into the fucking depths of the ocean and finding this hidden cave, and the combat loop was satisfying, was fun. It's simple. It's your Assassin's Creed combat loop, but it was good. It was a game that I played for over 70 hours, and I was always having fun with. So, number 9, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Number 8, The Outer Worlds. I like this more than any Bethesda game. I'm just going to put it up front right there. Obsidian knocked it out of the park. It was a much more intimate setting with The Outer Worlds, smaller scale locations, but still explorable in their own kind of minor open endedness, minor open worlds, but these smaller planets that they just felt a lot more intimate. The characters that you get to know throughout the journey, and the decisions that you make, and then even later in the game you're helping people out on they're going on dates and shit. But it's not all just silliness. Like, you can straight up decide the fate of characters immediately when you first interact with them. It is that kind of agency that from your Bethesda and your Obsidian games, where you can pretty much do whatever the fuck you want in these worlds, and then they try to offer you up that freedom. And yeah, I thought the gunplay was exceptional for this style of RPG, much better than Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 4, in my opinion. And you got to do the comparisons there, because they're obvious comparisons. But to me, I just like this more than the did I say Far Cry? I meant Fallout games. I enjoy the Outer Worlds more than the Fallout games, in my personal opinion. Number 7, Horizon Zero Dawn. Excellent storytelling. Storytelling here is what sells it. To me, the gameplay is so much better in Forbidden West across the board. The exploration, the traversal, the climbing, the underwater mechanics, the fucking flying, like, everything was better in Forbidden West. But the story, I still stand by that story in Zero Dawn as being like an all-time classic. Aloy finding the focus and kind of figuring out what her role in this is, why she is here, who she actually is, and then having that knowledge that is kind of in a way it's very powerful, but in a way it's also stifling to her, and it's something that she seems to wrestle with, if she even wants to know what she knows, when she finds that focus and is accessing the knowledge that she previously did not have. And so it's that weird dilemma of, is being over-informed worse than being uninformed? So it's just a great story. Love everything about Horizon Zero Dawn story, and I like it much more than Forbidden West story. But Forbidden West I still think is a much better game. Number 6, Ghost of Tsushima. The Assassin's Creed game that should have been made a long time ago. This feudal Japan, just the color palettes, the art direction, the art style is one of one, man. The choice of color, the use of color is better in this open world than maybe any open world game ever. It is so gorgeous, and the gameplay is so fun, taking a lot of inspiration from the Arkham style combat, but switching your stances and having the duels, and drawing the sword at the perfect time, and the final decision so weighty, such a huge impact. And I really loved Ghost of Tsushima. I think in terms of moment to moment gameplay, it's about as good as anything Sony first party has ever put out. So Ghost of Tsushima, number 6. Number 5, speaking about as good as anything Sony first party has put out in terms of gameplay, Spider-Man, Insomniac's Spider-Man. Once again, the open world mechanics, swinging around, just like I said, inspired by the Arkham games, obviously, but fusing in the Spider-Man agility and those abilities into the core combat, opposed to kind of the tank-based approach that you get from Batman. it works so well. It was just such a seamless experience in terms of the gameplay. It feels as good as you could ever expect a Spider-Man game to feel, from, like I said, the web swinging to the combat. But the real thing that surprised me more than all of that, because you know, Spider-Man 2 for the PS2, like, that nailed open world traversal. Batman Arkham, that nailed kind of superhero based combat games and counter based combat games. But what really surprised me, and the thing that stands out more than anything else, is I think this is one of the best superhero stories that's ever been told, just in general. You have the saga with Aunt May, and how the villain kind of wraps into her workplace, and the once again, talking about intimate storylines. It's really on offer with Insomniac Spider-Man. Very, very shocking revelations throughout the game. And you know, the epic fucking journey with Doc Ock, and these characters that you've known for years and years, that just a real great spin that the Insomniac writers put on these characters, that are not things that, you know, I've ever seen in the films or in the, you know, television series and shit. So yeah, I loved I loved that story and Insomniac Spider-Man, and I like Miles Morales' story quite a bit as well. But something about that it just felt like an epic journey for 2018 Spider-Man. Can't wait to see where they go with the sequel. Number 4, Uncharted 4. This is my favorite PlayStation 4 exclusive. It was just a technical showpiece. Like, because you're talking, I think it came out in 2016, and I love Lost Legacy as well, so kind of throw that in there also. But Uncharted 4, when I played it in 2016, I never played the Uncharted games before it, so I really didn't even know. Like, it wrapped up excellently well. I knew the story was told really well, but I didn't understand the importance of Nathan Drake, his character, and why the saga, and why that final sort of conclusion to his journey, why it held so much weight. So I even have more appreciation for it now than I did then. But just the technical wow factor when I played it, because I was just kind of getting back into games at this time, and the technical wow factor of the Jeep, the chase scene with the Jeep, and, you know, swinging through the fucking whatever, that wooden barricade or whatever, and like, there was just the densely populated city at the beginning of the game, and, you know, kind of just rustling through the city, and like you're shimmying along, and people are blocking you off, and you're trying to like walk past them, and it just felt so interactive. Like, everything that every movement, every motion that Nathan Drake made when you were controlling him felt so lifelike. It was surreal experiencing that for the first time. And, you know, the gameplay, the moment to moment gameplay is good. It's really, really good. But to me, it's just more of the technical kind of, oh my God, how many times I said, oh my fucking God, when you're looking at these vistas, and you're, you know, the verticality to Uncharted 4, and just the climbing and the swinging, and like, it really did feel like a next generation game. And it was like the first game that I played where I was like, holy shit, this is pushing my damn system to its limits. And yeah, love some Uncharted 4. Number 3, The Witcher 3. I'm not a guy that puts hundreds of hours into games, but I've put over 100 hours into The Witcher 3, and it's a game that I absolutely will be playing again at some point in my life. It's just one of the greatest stories I've ever experienced. Probably top 3, top 5 favorite stories I've ever experienced in a game. The journey of Geralt and Ciri, and, you know, kind of similar to the Joel and Ellie situation. This not exactly my daughter, but taking on the role of a father figure, but then being morally complicated in the same way that Joel is, where Geralt, but the key factor is you kind of get to decide where you're going to, where your moral compass is pointing. You know, if you want to walk in the gray area, you can do that. If you want to walk in the evil area, in the fucking, you want to be good, like, you can pick all that shit as Geralt. And I love that freedom. Like I said, decision making is one of my favorite things in gaming, and I love when it's so unbridled, unshackled, and letting you really make your choices in the game world. And there's just so many. iconic moments of that, where, you know, I bring this one up all the time, but it just sticks out in my memory so much. Of you go into this negotiation, and you hear your friend being tortured, and you kind of planned all this to go this way, but it's like so visceral when you hear it, and you have the option of cutting the negotiation short and just wrecking shop, but you're like, fuck, I came here with a purpose, we already planned for this to take place, what do I do? But in that moment, you get to make those decisions. I just love it. Blood and Wine, Hearts and Stone, all of it, fucking great. Number 2, The Evil Within 2. I think that this is the best survival horror game maybe since Resident Evil 2 in 1998. From you know, when it came out in 2017, I think The Evil Within 2 2017, if I'm not mistaken. It's taking such inspiration from The Last of Us and just benefits from it greatly. Benefits from it so greatly. It is a much scarier, I would say, version of The Last of Us, with this open world that's constantly evolving and introducing more and more threats, and higher degree of threats as you progress through the game. And the open world is supposed to be kind of your safe haven to go out and get resources, but it becomes more intimidating, more threatening over the course of the game, while also providing you with a linear pathway to the main story. And it just is all combined together so well. The gameplay improvements from 1 to 2 are drastic. The stealth improvements are drastic. The shooting is much better. I think the final the final section of The Evil Within 2, the story, just wraps up beautifully. And yeah, I hope we get a third one. Not holding my breath. Number 1, obviously, Red Dead Redemption 2. I've said it a million times, but if you had to ask me, like, what is the greatest video game of all time, I would say instantly Red Dead Redemption 2. Just like objective greatness, I don't know if you can surpass this. It is unbelievable. Unfucking believable. And I think it's the best gameplay that any Rockstar game has ever had, along with probably the best story that any Rockstar game has ever had, which is crazy to think that all those improvements were made simultaneously to the story and the gameplay to give total, like the total package of the greatest Rockstar game ever made. San Andreas will always be like my personal nostalgic favorite, but objective greatness, you can't top Red Dead Redemption 2. The melee combat is fucking really solid. The shooting is much better than any other Rockstar game. The immersive aspects of Red Dead Redemption 2, of preparing for whatever climate you're about to endure as you're on your journey, as you're traveling, you know, heading to the damn tip jar when you get back to camp, and going off and going fishing, trying to catch the rarest fish, trying to, you know, kill the fucking rarest hunt, bringing that back to camp, having that camaraderie with the Dutch and crew, and great arc there with Dutch, fucking worst villain but best villain ever with Micah. And what else needs to be said? Red Dead Redemption 2 is, in my opinion, the best PlayStation 4 game ever made. Let me know in the comments. Hit me with your list, hit me with your suggestions, all that good shit. And that's it for the show today. A little bit of a long one, so I apologize for that, but had to hit those topics, man. I can't be having no ties with and you know, moseying on about my way into just swiping one off to the side. We got to do both. We got to be democratic to the people. We got to be true to the people. And when the people vote, if it ends up in a tie, we cover both the topics, because that's words. I don't know. I'm out of them. Appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Goodbye.